most part, our talks this month have been focusing on a master's program in spirituality, and this is the 5th Sunday. And guess what? We turn to a new leaf next week. Well, maybe not a new leaf, but it's a new month. A new topic awaits us. We've been exploring what we can do to deepen our relationship with God. Our monthly affirmation I was looking at yesterday, just for a little refreshing, it explains that it is as we are willing to listen to the call to grow into a master's level of spiritual consciousness. It's as we are willing to receive fully and willing to act upon this deep calling that we can experience the greatest yet to be. So today, Reverend Pat Davies gives her first message, whoa, as a newly installed staff minister. Thunderous applause, thank you. At our center, on her behalf, at our center, asking us, are we willing? Are we willing? Please welcome Reverend Pat.
So first I just want to start off by expressing my gratitude and for saying thank you for showing up here this morning and being willing to listen to what I have to say. So as Reverend Ken mentioned, over the last month we've had the pleasure of hearing from Reverend Joanne all of the things necessary for each of us to have a master's of consciousness. So she spoke to us about to me, that how life happens to me. She spoke of for me, how life is for me and through me, that life is the power and the presence working through me. She spoke of as me, that life as me, that there is no place where God begins and where I end. And then she added a 5th one, and the 5th one was called Beyond Me. And that's the one that really spoke to me very loudly. Because when I first stepped through the doors of the center, the whole concept of God, of spirit, seemed beyond me. I didn't have a concept that I could articulate, that I could have faith in. I had no idea 10 years ago that I would find myself here, installed as a staff minister. And for those of you who were here for the ceremony, for the installation on the 15th, you may remember that Reverend Connie and Dr. Ken alluded to me as being the student that was always asking a lot of questions. I was the person that just didn't take what was told me as the truth. So I asked many questions and I challenged what was being taught. However, saying all of that, I was also willing. I was willing to learn. I was willing to be open to new possibilities. So as I took one class, and then the next 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 class, I learned a lot about how I interpret what I observe. I learned about how I was choosing and what I was choosing to draw from my own experience. I learned how my story shaped my self-concept, how it impacted my self-confidence, my emotions, and my actions. I learned that the outcome of my life was being based on a self-fulfilling prophecy. To this day, I still find myself telling that I am this or I am that because of events that happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, dare I say 50 years ago. I guess I can say that, I can still say that. Can't go much higher than that, but I can do that, right? So and all of this was based on my story, on my history. So on my journey through ministry, I've had the opportunity to meet and to hear from many fine ministers all across North America. On my panel was Dennis Merritt Jones. And more recently, Reverend Linda Finley out of Eugene, Oregon, who is my mentor, spoke on one of his talks. The question that he put out for consideration was this: Is your history your high story? Is it your best story? So what he was talking about is that all too often we allow our past history, our story, to define us. And then what happens with that is that it also sets limits. It limits us. Dr. Jim Lockhart, another minister through the Centers for Spiritual Living, words it this way. He poses the question, how good does your life have to get before you start getting nervous? Oh, it's getting too good. Something's going to happen. I know it is, right? Something's not right here. Any second now, the other shoe is going to drop. Anybody ever lived their life like that, waiting for the other shoe to drop? Well, I will admit that I have lived much of my life like that. However, one of the blessings of this teaching, a piece of what I have learned through my studies, and I continue to learn it, is that that doesn't necessarily have to be true. Judge Thomas Troward, who was an inspirational teacher of our founder, Ernest Holmes, has a wonderful quote that when I first heard it really struck me in a very deep way, very profoundly. And as I learn it and I develop an understanding of it, my ideas begin to change. And what he said was, principle is not bound by precedent. By principle, he meant life, spirit, the God of all being, the source energy, is not bound by precedent. A step in my personal spiritual growth, my spiritual awareness, is the realization of how true this is and how grateful I am to know how true this is. Principle is not bound by precedent. What the heck does that mean? Principle, or life, is the cause of everything. Is what makes the stars shine and the planets spin. It's what pumps our hearts and keeps us breathing. Some people call it God, call it source, call it creative intelligence. Other people just call it nature. You can call it whatever you want, because ultimately, principle doesn't care. All that matters is that principle is the cause of everything. The next piece is not bound by, meaning there is nothing holding it back. There is nothing holding life back. Principle is like a glorious drag queen, dressed to the nines and singing, "I will survive," at the top of her lungs. You just can't stop her. My precedent. Precedent meaning that's how it's always been. Precedent is much like the money that you have in your bank account, or how much you exercise, or perhaps how much you weigh, or how you get along with your family of origin. Precedent is that feeling of inertia that comes when something has been a particular way for a particular long time, and you have that sense that it has to stay that way. But wait a minute. Principle is not bound by that. She doesn't care what you have weighed up till now, or how much money you have in the bank, or how well you get along with your family of origin. None of that matters to principle. Principle, life, God, the source energy, does not care. But somehow it seems to matter to me, seems to matter to us, or at least we think it does. How often have we thought nothing can change because it's always been that way? It's like we think there's some kind of universal law that says it needs to be that way. But as Troward says, principle is not bound by precedent. The past literally means nothing to principle. Today is a new day, and principle is right here with us, waiting to expand us into something more glorious than we have ever been before. Principle actually loves that kind of thing. Why? Because life, or principle, God, source, is all about growth and change and expansion. And all we have to do is just let it. Here's another super awesome thing about principle. You are principle. Principle is everything So that includes you. Therefore, you are not bound by precedent. You, your glorious, powerful self, cannot be stopped by anything, including what's gone on before, because we are made of the energy of stars. Just saying.
Good.
Just saying, right? So what works for me? What works for me is developing my spiritual practice as a way to tap into this powerful awesomeness that I am. Prayer, affirmation, meditation, visioning, reading, taking classes, doing service, music, time in nature. I just get to use whatever I can, whatever floats my boat. So the next time that you feel like giving up, just remember, principle is not bound by precedent. It's never too late to start anew. The truth is that our soul is awakening to its true nature. It is a process of unfoldment, a process of evolution. In the Science of Mind text on page 195, Ernest Holmes says this: we should carefully consider whether we are willing to experience the results of our thoughts. We should carefully consider whether we are willing to experience the results of our thoughts. Our part is to be ready. Our part is to be willing, to have the willingness to let Spirit guide us. Are you willing to change your history to your high story? My hope for today is that you are willing, positively willing to look at what's going on in your life today. Where there appears to be something showing up as history, where it appears that perhaps the other shoe may be dropping at any moment, that you are willing, as uncomfortable and as painful as it may be, that you are willing to shift from your history to your high story. Spiritual awakening is not a state, experience, or a goal to be attained sometime in the future. As Buddha taught, it is not superhuman achievement or attainment. You don't have to travel to India to find it. It's not a special state of perfection reserved for enlightened beings, the lucky or the privileged few. It is not an out-of-body experience, and it does not involve living in a cave and detaching yourself from the realities of the world. It cannot be transmitted to you by a fancy guru, or taken away, or lost. You do not have to become anyone's discipline or follower. What it is a constant and ancient invitation throughout every moment of your life. It's an opportunity to embrace yourself exactly as you are in all your glorious perfection. It is about being present. It is about coming out of the epic story of the past or even the future, the story of your life, and just showing up in this precious moment. Spiritual awakening is about radically opening up to this extraordinary gift of life, embracing both the pain and the joy of it, the bliss and the sorrow, the ecstasy and the overwhelm, knowing that you are life itself, vast, awake, alive, and free, and knowing that you are never separate from the whole. Awakening is not a destination. It is our birthright, our nature. But wait a minute. My story's true. My history's true. I would suggest to you that it is both true and untrue. So are you willing to do a little experiment with me so that I can illustrate what this actually means? So I'll just invite you to touch your elbow. Touch your elbow. So are you touching your body? Yes, you're touching your body. Are you touching the whole of your body? No. You're just touching a part of it. And that's what happens with our history. That's what happens with our old stories. We're only touching a part of it, not the whole of it. Our history is only made up of part of the truth. Our high story is the whole truth. And the truth is that inside of you, there is a new story that is waiting for you to give birth to it. And that's where our power lies. Our power, mine and yours, lies in our ability to move to where our high story is. It's kind of like a horse and a cart. Anybody ever try to put the cart before the horse? That's often what we do with our history, with our story. And just imagine what happens when we do that. We load up all of our history, all of our story into the cart, and we climb into the cart, and we say, okay, let's move it. What happens? Right? The cart is loaded down. It's loaded down with our history, with our story. And to our surprise, the cart doesn't move. And then we look around and we realize that we've put the horse in the back of the cart. So what happens when we move the horse around to the front of the cart? Then we begin to have movement, right? Then we can start to move. And our history can then become our high story. Dr. Ernest Holmes, in his Reader on Change, suggests the following. We should daily affirm that new ideas are coming to us, new ways of doing, that we are meeting new and wonderful friends, new situations, that joyous things are going to happen to us. The creative principle is always reacting to us as we act in it. It is always creating in our bodies and our affairs. Consequently, we should all learn to live in a state of joyous and enthusiastic expectancy. This is the principle upon which faith and the answer to our prayers are based. Let us then bless everything we do, everyone we meet, knowing that the limitations of the past need not be carried into the future. Nothing is too good to be true. Nothing is too much to ask of a power that can do anything. There is something within each of us which is conscious of our unity with good, with all the power that is. Upon this power, presence, and light, we must depend with complete confidence. Thus, faith passes into experience with scientific certainty. Faith is the most dynamic phenomenon known. How many of us are filled with the concept of a glass being half filled with water? When a cup is half filled with water, you have a choice. You have a choice to think. You could think, well, there's a glass only half full of water, expressing dissatisfaction. Or you could say, that cup, it's already filled, half filled with water. I'm so grateful. That is the purpose of affirmative prayer, of spiritual mind treatment. We are attempting to keep our mind tuned into the level of intelligence, tuned into our high story, which initiates renewal, healing, and a new experience. We adjust our thinking to what principle, life, God is already doing. It is producing the universe and everything in it. As Ernest Holmes and others have taught, we are the way and the means through which that which we have called God, Spirit, can be revealed. Well, what could God be but not the very qualities that we seek to multiply in our lives? Qualities like love, joy, vitality, supply, peace, creative intelligence. These are the energies, the qualities that we want to transmute into our human experience. It is our mind, both the conscious and the subconscious, that writes the scenario for the plays and the dramas of our life. Therefore, our life's drama is unfolding based on the scenario that we have written in our mind. When our mind is bright, our life brightens. When our mind is dark, our life also darkens. When you try to change your environment without changing your mind, the same conditions appear in your life. In other words, you may run away from your present situation, from your present environment, but you'll always end back in that environment again. It's the same thing that happens to us with the schools that we pick, the jobs that we pick, even with relationships that we pick. When we change our attitudes towards the past, it's over, it's done, nothing can be changed. We can change our thoughts about the past. How foolish it is for me, right, to punish myself in the present moment because of something or someone that hurt me yesterday, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, on and on it goes. If we choose to believe that we are helpless victims and that it's all hopeless, then the universe will support us in that belief. Our worst opinions of ourselves will be confirmed. If we choose, however, to believe that we are responsible for our experiences, the good and the so-called bad, then we have an opportunity to outgrow the effects of the past. We can change. We can be free. Louise Hay tells us that the past has no power over us. It doesn't matter how long you've been in a negative pattern. We can be free in this moment. So I'd just like you to take a moment and to imagine that you're sitting around a campfire. And as you sit around the campfire, you may hear things like, "Oh, this is the perfect fire. Oh, it's too smoky. It's too hot. There's too many sparks. There's too much wood. There's not enough wood. This is perfect for roasting marshmallows." The campfire is not the same experience for everyone, but the campfire is the same. It is not the circumstances of the campfire that dictates our experience. It is our relationship or idea about the campfire that dictates our experience. So as I come to a closing, again, I would like to quote some wise words from Ernest Holmes. And he says, "Let us therefore light the candle of love, human kindness, forgiveness, and understanding in our own soul, and let it shine brightly. Let us not peer into the darkness, troubled and concerned because it is so foreboding and unknown. Rather, let us remain steadfast in the radiance of that spiritual light of truth within ourselves. Let us stand guard so the winds of malice, cross purposes, ignorance, or misunderstanding will not blow out the light. Let us live each day that the light from our candle of spiritual knowledge will be forever clear and understood, not only by ourselves, but by all with whom we come in contact." So in closing, I would invite you to check in with your history. Is it your high story? You can make it your high story. So I invite you to be willing to make your history your high story. So I'd like to close by inviting you to do some affirmations with me. So in the beginning of this talk, I mentioned how I was the one student that was always willing to ask questions. So this morning I have some questions that I would like to ask you. Are you willing?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have the willingness to repeat after me?
Yes.
I have the willingness.
I have the willingness.
Are you willing to be willing?
I am willing to be willing.
I am willing to tell my high story.
I am willing to tell my high story.
I tell my high story.
I tell my high story.
I am willing to let go of my history.
I am willing to let go of my history.
I let go of my history.
I let go of my history.
I am willing to be magnificent.
I am willing to be magnificent.
I am magnificent.
I am magnificent.
I am willing to be my best.
I am willing to be my best.
I am my best.
I am my best.
I am willing to be an expression of love.
I am willing to be an expression of love.
I am love.
I am love.
I am good.
I am good.
I am willing to develop my spiritual practices.
I am willing to develop my spiritual practices.
I develop my spiritual practices.
I develop my spiritual practices.
And so it is.
And so it is.